Today is August the 31st, 1996. We're in McLean, Virginia at the 12th Armored Reunion, the 50th one. My name is Charla Henson. I am interviewing Ted J. Zawacki, a member of the 17th Armored Infantry Battalion. I appreciate you letting me come and talk to you today. First of all, I would like to know your full name, where you were born, and the date of your birth.
My name is Thaddeus J. Zawacki. I was born in a little town in New York City, Queens, Maspeth. And I'm a member of four boys. My father and mother had 4 boys, came here from Poland. And
the date of your birth?
My date of my birth is 1920, September 29th. And out of 4 of us, 3 of us went into the service.
Can you give me their names, and starting with the oldest to the youngest?
My oldest brother's name was Stanley Zawacki, and he had passed away last year at the age of 80. And he couldn't get into service. He was married. He wanted to go into the Navy, but they wouldn't take him because he had a family, and he was the odd guy that was out, you know. My brother, John Zawacki, was a buck sergeant in military police, and he served for 4 years in the States guarding prisoners. My brother, Chester Zawacki, he was a staff sergeant and a first sergeant with a tank battalion in Okinawa and the Philippines and so forth. He come back, he was in a Jeep accident, and all his life he had to wear a sort of a rubber corset to hold him up in course. And me, well, I'll tell you my story, right?
Okay, yes.
Well, to begin with, I went into the service in September 42 with 15 other members, all of the 12th Armored Division, but different battalions, different companies. And we went through the whole bit and wound up in France and most of us stayed with the division. Some of us didn't come back, you know that story. And well, I'd like to tell you some of the experiences I had, which was, I was in every platoon in a 17th, machine gun platoon, assault gun platoon, and a mortar platoon, which I wound up in a mortar platoon permanently. While here I experienced Herlesheim as a mortarman, and at the 17th of January I was sent up as a rifleman. Spent the night in beautiful Herlesheim with some Mark V6 tanks or 5.1 tanks and a whole lot of Krauts, and ran out of ammunition up there, and the word was, well, if you could get out, you had nothing to fight them with. So me and some other fella, I don't know his name, we just took off like 2 big deers and ran across that field. A lot of little mortar rounds coming down, but we made it back. I ran into one of my buddies in the 495th that came from my hometown. His name was Bertoli, Sergeant Bertoli, and he was taking a shave in his coffee cup, and he says to me, "What are you guys doing here? You guys are supposed to be up in Herlesheim with the infantry." I said, "The only infantry up there, either dead, wounded, or captured." I says, "No ammunition, what are we going to fight them with?" With that, he brought us over to some lieutenant. The lieutenant gave us 2 new nice M1s and 2 bandoliers of ammunition. And he said, "You know where you got to go, boys." So we went back up there, got up on the bridge into the first couple of houses, fired out all the rounds we had, instead of going on any further, we stood right there, and here comes another fella that I went in with from my hometown, riding on a motorcycle. He was a messenger for the 119th Engineers. His name was Heinz Simon. He spoke fluently in German, so they used him as, when they took prisoners, he would interrogate them, I guess for his battalion. And he had told us, he said, where the hell are you guys going? He said, back up there. He said, oh no, the word is pull out. He says, the Longhorns are coming with their big guns. So I said, what the heck kind of big guns? He says, the guys with the big horns and the big 6 guns, 36th Infantry Division is going to relieve us. So with that, we just took off, ran like hell back, and we finally made our way back to the 17th, And on the way back, I should have started with this before. When we were going up to Herlesheim, I met John Kilcheski from my hometown, which I went to school with, played ball and that. He was in the 43rd Tank Battalion C Company, and he said to me, where you going, Dutch? He called me Dutch, my nickname. I said, we're going up to that little town, ain't much up there. He said, you guys are nuts. That place has got crowds dug in all along that railroad track. I said, well, I'll see you when we get back anyway. Well, when we got back, I seen his tank burning up with a couple other tanks. And when I got home, they never found his body. And he lived on a block right behind us, and his mother, my mother, a little Polish town, So whenever she seen my mother, she would ask Teddy what happened to Johnny, because Johnny used to write me letters that him and Teddy used to go out have a couple of beers once in a while, hang out together. And I just couldn't tell her, Mother. I just told her I never seen him up there. And, well, anyway, that was the end of John, and we just continued on from there. And joined the motor platoon again, took off, and went into went back to some town out of Herlesheim to regroup, and we were getting a lot of replacements in. And one of the replacements was my youngest kid brother-in-law, which was 18 years old, had 6 weeks of training. And my company commander said to me, Dutch, there's a little kid out here. He looks like he never took a shave. He looks like he's about 16. He said, it's your brother, and he wants to join us. And he said, it's up to you. If you want him, let me know, because I got to get rid of these guys. And I said, it couldn't be my brother-in-law. He's too young. He said, well, go talk to him. I went out there with him, And, I told him, get the hell out of here and join a regular infantry outfit, because this outfit, you got to move, brother. You got to be there all the time. So he started crying. He wanted to go, So I said, okay, we'll take you along with us. I made a big mistake here. Put him in my platoon. And, every day you pray and you live to see the sunshine or whatever in the morning. And they're too close together, So I asked the company commander to switch him out, which I think I should have never done, because, like I said, he wound up, in the 2 months he was with us, he was wounded twice, got the Silver Star, and he was shipped home way ahead of me. He got hit the last mortar shell, took all his meat off his arm, and had shrapnel from his back of his legs to the top of his head. And he died from them wounds 20 years later. Well, this was after the war. He worked with me in the same place. As a matter of fact, all us guys that came back from the 12th, we all worked in his construction firm. And I was his boss. When I went in there, well, shouldn't jump the gun. That story should be back further, okay? I'll tell you about that, though, when we get to it. The only other good, rough experience I know of is that I was an odd man because I was a machine gunner before, and the machine gun platoon was wiped out. And whatever was left of the machine gunners, they put in a mortar platoon or spread us out along to fill in. And when I got in this mortar platoon, they made me an ammo handler, and if they needed somebody on a flank, they would put a machine gun out there and put me and some other fella on there to guard the flank, which was our job, like, more or less. And besides that, when it come to sporadic fire and that, we were the guys that stayed up all night and just dropped the shell in every couple of minutes and just wiggled that gun around so it hit something out there in the dark. And when that job come up, when they needed somebody, like there was a time they had to clean out a town of snipers before the division jumped off, and they sent me and another fella called Hector D'Ambrosio, another good friend of mine, in the mortar platoon. They told us, you guys go up there, you and you, report to this guy, you got to go with them, clean out this town. In other words, we volunteered, you and you. So off we went. We got into the town, and in the middle of town was a sergeant laying from our division, but I didn't know what company he was from. This man was a good, I'd say 260 pounds, real heavy man, laying in the middle of the road. He was really shot up bad. And, you know, he was calling for a medic, but we were there, just 25 of us, I think, at the time, and we were all spread out. There was house-to-house combat. You know, it was a slow process, you know. And we come up to this house, and there was a lieutenant there. Don't ask me his name or nothing, I don't know. I don't even know the name of the town. But he had said, you two guys go out there and pick that guy up and bring him in. So, hey, you know, we ran out there. We couldn't lift this guy up. He was dead weight, you know. We didn't want to drag him. He's bleeding like a fountain. They run back, and I said to the lieutenant, we can't pick that guy up. It's too damn heavy. Meanwhile, these guys are trying to shoot our heads off. You know, you're going to drag a guy, you know you're going to get it next, right? So he said, well, wait here. I'll get a couple more men. I said, why don't you come with us? He said, no. He said, I'll get you 2 men. So he got 2 men, and he said, why don't you guys take a mattress and put them on, which was a good idea, you know. You could see 4 guys running out there with snipers shooting at them. We got the guy on there, and we brought him back. As a medic took care of him, but we don't know who the guy was or if he made it or what. You know, it's one of those things, move out. So we took off, and we got caught up with the rest of the guys. And Hector, I don't know what happened. He just went, maybe too much combat, I don't know. But he just ran out there, started firing at anything, you know. And down he went, you know. So I ran out there, grabbed a hold of him, dragged him back, put him by that doorway. He was dead. And the medic said, leave him here, I'll take care of him, you know. Go ahead. So I took off, you know. And that was the worst night we ever had. It was when we got to the end of the town, it took us so long to clean that town out. There's so many houses to go into, but we seen where these shots come from was a tall building, like 4-story building, and that's where the firing was coming from. So us 3 of us, we went in that building, we shot up the whole place. We killed 4 snipers in there. One guy jumped out the window before we could get to him. And we paid it back a little bit, you know. And by the time we reached the end of the town, it was dark. And we had to go back. This road was mined. They had mines dug in and box mines laying on the top of the road, you know. And we started back, we had to hold hands so we wouldn't kill each other, you know. So dark. Me and some other kid were the last two guys on, you know, holding hands, and he let go of the guy in front of him. We were tangled up in some wire hanging from a pole, you know, telegraph wire or something. So he let go. So I said to him, we might as well stay here. If we go out there, these guys are going to hear a little noise. They're going to swing around. We're never going to make it back. So we stayed there, looking out in the dark there for a couple hours, you know, and just had everything all set to go if anyone come. And we just about ready to fall asleep or something. We hear a lot of noise like a tank or something coming down that road the way we came in, you know. So we didn't know if it was ours or theirs. We had a couple of grenades, and we stood in that same doorway, and this thing come right up next to us, no lights, you know. And the guy in the front was walking the way we do. You have a white stripe on the back, you know. You follow that stripe. Thing stops right alongside of us. And the guy inside hollers, I wonder where the hell we're at, you know. So he said, oh man, thank God, one of our guys, you know. So went out there, we surprised the heck out of him, you know, and we told him what happened, you know, and it was a radio track, I'm sure it was from the 23rd Tank Battalion. It was just two of them, sergeant and a corporal, driver. And he said, you guys want to go back with us? We're going to go back the same way, because I told him, don't go down the road. It's all mines down there, and there's a couple of mines on the top of the road. So he said, okay. We got way in the back of the track because we had experience with that. When you hit a landmine, boy, you better be in the back of the track. This guy started to turn around, and bam. Joy, he must have hit a big box mine. The front of that thing just folded up. You know, threw me and this other kid out over the sides. We must have laid there at least an hour. Couldn't hear nothing, just like a train running through your head, you know. And finally we got our wits together, you know. We said, let's check these guys out. They were done for, you know. That track was destroyed. The front of it was destroyed. And we took the .50 caliber off, found the tripod, and we set it up a little ways down, took all the ammunition they had off, set the gun up, and we sat there till daybreak. Daybreak, we hear all this noise coming down the road. We figured it must be the 12th Armored Division. Sure enough, come around the bend, we see a big white star on a lead tank, you know. We said, oh man, we ran out there waving, you know, and the first tank stopped, and then some lieutenant come down the Jeep, asked what happened. We told him what happened, you know, and it was their guys, you know. They took their dog tags and threw us in the Jeep, took us back to headquarters 17th, and we rejoined our outfit, you know. Well, I'll tell you, that day was my worst day I think I had in combat, you know. And then from there on, it was a piece of cake, you know. We were moving like heck and just creaming these guys and taking town after town, you know. And jump up to where the war ended. My kid brother-in-law got hit, I told you, right? And he was sent home, and I got a letter from him that he was okay, you know, that he's coming along good. And the war ended. We were the 17th was leading the party over to Austria. 23rd passed us up, and the war ended, you know. And we all got out and kissed the ground and thanked the Lord, you know, and a week later, we had a lot of Russians and Polish guys, you know, that tagged along with us that we had freed in these prison camps. That's, I guess, you know, we went through the Holocaust there.
Yeah, I'd like for you to talk, if you feel comfortable, I would like for you to tell us some about liberating the camps, if you feel comfortable about it.
Well, I tell you, I'd never like to see anything like that again. We were the infantry, so we just jumped off for a couple of seconds. Our orders were to keep going. And Jesus, these guys were all over the place, mutilated and thin as this cane, you know what I mean? But we couldn't help them. What could we do? We'd give them water or whatever we could, but the word come down, don't feed them, don't give them anything till the medics come up, But we weren't there too long. We freed the camp and do what we had to do. Took care of the crowds, you know what I mean? And we took off. No, I wouldn't want to see that again. That was just, I don't even want to talk about it. You see the pictures in the books. And
Did you know did y'all know getting there what that was? Did y'all have any idea that was what you were going to see?
No.
Or did you know, did it only later did you realize what you had seen, that those were the camps?
Well, we didn't know what they were at
Yeah.
first, We just rode and we said, look at this, Jesus, the guys in these striped suits, And then these people tell you a little bit, like I told you, I speak Polish, and a lot of them people were not only Jewish, they were Polish people, they had priests, and a lot of Jewish people talk Polish, so, we talked a little bit, and they, But once you seen that, you knew what you'd to expect as you went on, so that was terrible. And like I said, we were taking them Polish and Russian guys that we freed, after them going with us, they donned our uniforms on, was fighting right with us, really, a lot of them, you know what I mean? So they were going to send them home by plane, and being that I talked Polish, they told me I had to go with them, and there was another fellow went with me. What the heck was his name now? This guy here he said, I'll go with you, because they wanted a couple of guys out of the outfit to go with them, to send them off, in other words. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we got in this truck, in a 5-ton truck, rather. And we're going down the road to Heidenheim, and around the town of Tannhausen, this truck rolled over 3 or 4 times, killed most of those Russians, and the driver of the truck, I don't know how to explain this. But he was hurt pretty bad, and it took one of his testicles off, they told me, the handbrake and that. And me and George Mayer, the fellow that was with me, his name was George Mayer. I knew him from the States. He was 21 years old. He hit a tree this big around with his head, just pushed his brains right in, And I hit it with my legs. And we laid in that field, I guess, for maybe 2-3 hours, And there was a guy called Bescript in my outfit, too. He was hurt pretty bad, but he was running up and down the road looking for help, Finally, was some Jeep come along, and they got the ambulance come down, rushed us to the hospital. And that George Mayer was on a table next to me when they were operating on his head, and they were drilling holes through my leg to put a bolt in there to pull the leg together. And George just went. He left us, and Colonel that was working on him said he's better off because he would have been a vegetable, And then...
So you broke your leg? Your leg was broken in the accident?
My leg was split down the middle, and the leg was broke here, this arm here, and my foot was broke. And I spent a year in the hospital. I spent 3 months there in France in the hospital. All I know is a lot of people from the 101st Airborne there, casualties. And I was in traction there, and they put us in plastic casts. and they ZI'd us to the States. You know, it was 18 liters in the plane. Landed in Mitchell Field, Long Island, on a second hop after they gassed up. And it was a naval base, and all the Army people just stayed there 24 hours. And while I was in France, some Red Cross girl used to write my letters to my wife, and she used to write down there that I had a couple of broken fingers because I didn't want to tell her what really happened to me, you know. So when we landed there at that naval base, they sent for my father, mother, and so forth. And my wife come up, and my father, man, I never seen a man cry. But the first time I ever seen him cry when he seen me in his cast, you know, tied up like a mummy. And my mother, you know, and Vicky, you know, it just was too much for them, you know. But anyway, I spent a year in the hospital after that, you know, attractions and operations and that. And I finally, going home on furlough, my wife got pregnant, so I said, I got to get out of this Army, you know. So I'm talking to some colonel there, and he said, well, we'll discharge you as long as you wear this brace, you know, full leg brace. I said, well, let me get out of here. I got to do something, you know. You can't live on $27 or $31 a month that we were getting, you know, and $10 for a combat infantry badge that you could get on a trolley car with for a quarter with it, you know, at that time. So I took the chance, you know. I signed out, and I wore that brace for about 6 months. I worked in our town. There was a lithographing place that just hired veterans that were, you know, couldn't walk, and tearing little cardboards up for cigarette companies' advertisements. And it's like $20 a week, 5 days a week, you know. But it was something anyway. And this leg, I couldn't bend at all at the time. It was always straight. That brace was just so you wouldn't put too much pressure on it. And Vicky had the baby, and my mother watched the baby. She went to work in the 5 and dime. Because what could you live on, you know? And you got out, my suit didn't fit me, the only suit I had, and, you know, things were tough, you know. And I just said, I got to get out of here. I can't do that job, you know. So I took that brace off. One night, we had a little apartment, just had 3 rooms. We had some secondhand furniture that our family gave us, you know. And this apartment was on the 2nd floor, and the bathroom, you had to go out in the hall where the staircase was. Well, I walked out there, I guess I made the wrong turn. I went down them steps, head over heels. Wound up on the bottom, and my leg blew up like twice the size. I called the VA. The VA was there in 15 minutes. Picked me up, took me to Kingbridge Road Veterans. I spent, I guess, about a couple of weeks there in traction and that, you know. And they sent me up to out in Long Island there, learn how to walk again, you know. And that worked out pretty well. When I came home, I said to Vicky, I got to go make some money. And them fellas I was telling you about that were in with me, one of them worked in a construction line where they did hire veterans, you know, mostly veterans. So I went there, and the guy says, geez, I don't think you could stand up that long. You know, I said, well, haven't you got something where I could work sitting down? He said, you know how to weld? I said, oh, man, I could weld anything. I didn't know a welding rod from a pencil, you know. I said, let me do something. So he said, well, go down by that kid there, Joe. I'll be right down. So I go down there. I said to this kid, he was a veteran too, you know. He was a young kid. I said, hey, buddy, I said, I don't know how to weld or nothing, you know, but I need the job, you know. He said, I'll tell you what, you tell that guy you know how to weld. You stay with me. And in a week, he had me welding as good as him. He was doing my work and his work, but I learned quick, and I was doing as good as him. After a year, my leg was pretty strong, and I become the foreman out in the yard foreman. And I had a couple of guys under me, and what happened, my kid brother-in-law that got hit so bad, he was working in a place making little baskets and $25 a week, It was tough in them days, And his wife called one time and said, Billy, we just can't make it, So I said, tell him, meet me in the morning, I'll take him in by me, maybe they'll hire him, Sure enough, I brought him down there and they hired him. We were making $50 a week, that was big time. The only thing, this leg I still couldn't bend, it was always straight. So what happened, we couldn't drive. We used to have a guy who used to pay him, like $1.50 a week would take us to work and drop us off, because how the heck we're going to get there, So what happened, one of my brother John, was a good mechanic. We went to a junkyard, we bought a broken down Dodge. It was hit in the front, took it all apart, a couple of weeks, we put it all together again, it ran pretty good. We took the seats out, and we put a seat in there like this, way back so I could drive, So we started driving, going to work with our own car, me and my brother-in-law, a couple other guys, they were giving me $1 for taking them to work, So things worked out pretty well that way for us, But like I said, though, you never forget this. You know what I mean? Because you get up in the morning, you think about it, God damn, if I didn't have this thing, maybe my life would have been a little better, Which I had a good life, don't get me wrong. But somebody asked me, do you think of these things? And I never forget them kids that were with me, like that kid, George Mayer, Hector D'Ambrosio laying out there. And, you don't forget them things. I looked for his family for about 3 years because I wanted to tell him what happened. I don't know if he's still laying there or if they brought him home. And George Mayer, I could never find where he lived either, It's one of those things. So, but maybe someday, I even had a guy looking through the outfit, but nobody seems like they could get in touch with him. They figured maybe they passed away, by now. But like I was saying, people don't forget what they went through, because come the winter, I had frozen feet. I guess I told one of the girls they had to cut my boots off. It was so cold laying in that snow for a couple of days that when we got up to move out, it just fell down. He got up and fell down. I said, what's the matter with you? I said, I don't know, I can't stand up. The medic come along, he said, your feet are froze, So I said, we got to get you back to the hospital. It took me back to some hospital in France there. I guess a good week or so. It was great.
Do you remember when
shower.
Do you remember where that was at your feet, where they had to take you?
Somewhere around the Maginot Line.
Okay. So you hadn't been there a long time when that happened, had you?
No, we weren't there too long at that time. It's one of those places where we just had to go out, a lot of snow come down. They got you boxed in, you can't move out, things like that. Well, like I was saying, Vicky says to me a lot of times, she says, I wake her up hollering in the night. Where's the ammo? We got no ammo. I don't remember half of the time myself, but she says, damn it, you better forget the war. You can't forget it. Close your eyes, and where we live in the woods comes the snow and a little bit of mist or something. Boy, you sit out there and you say, you imagine you're back up there up at the front, You don't forget them things, That's about it, I guess,
Do you think that 12th Armored Division, has it helped you to work through some of those hard times? Does it help to come here and talk about?
We never talked about it.
Okay.
All us men that worked together in that shop, at the time when I left, there was, I guess, 6 of us. We never talked about the Army. I don't know why. When I got out of the Army, I just wanted to forget about the Army, you know. It just, you know, a new baby, wife, you know, the whole bit. You're away for a long time. And I just wanted to get rid of the Army, you know. I remember when we first got out, I had an airplane come over, I jumped to the ground. People looking at me like I was nuts. Of course, I was thinking of when a jet plane come over us. And another one of my buddy, Joe Coons, when the first jet plane come over, first time we seen the kitchen in about a week, I guess, and he come up with his ammo truck, and he was in service company. And we had a little chow sitting on a running board when this thing come over and just whizzed. We didn't know what it was, you know. Come back, start strafing us. Went up again, come back and dropped a bomb right on his truck. Blew it up. Blew the top of his head off. And you just on the ground digging in the dirt like that, call a mama, you know. And that's one funny thing. Everybody says, well, they don't believe in God, they don't believe in this and that. But how come when they hit, first thing they're calling for is Mama or Jesus, right? You know what I'm saying? I done it myself, I know. When them doctors told me I might not be able to walk, one night I dreamt Jesus was standing alongside of me and said to me, don't worry, you walk, you know. Here I'm walking, you know what I mean? I go to VA every 2 months, you know. They can't operate kind of that bolt is in there. And now I'm getting arthritis going up, you know. So they're taking good care of me, though. I mean, they got some new kind of stuff made out of hot peppers that I put rub on there, you know. It relieves it for a couple hours, you know. And they got to live with it, you know. What are you going to do? That's about it.
Okay. Are there any Barclay stories that you were at Barclay, weren't you? Were you at Barclay? Were you at Camp Barclay?
Camp Barclay. Man, how could I ever forget it? Yeah, I was there.
Tell me some stories about Camp Barclay. We missed those.
Camp Barclay was a big, wide open space. You had a beautiful little bungalows, they called them. These little shacks made out of plywood. You know, dust flying. You get up in the morning, dust over everything. You know what I mean? And they used to give us all the ammunition we wanted. Go out and kill rattlesnakes. You know, go out there in the desert there. Now armadillos, when you're on guard duty sometime, you hear this damn noise, you know, you wonder, you can't see nothing, and this thing comes past you like, it looked like a little tank, you know. Rolling along, well, I tell you, it was something. It was a big camp. And Camp Campbell. Camp Campbell, when I got in Camp Campbell, it was nothing, they have no sidewalks, nothing there. And now you go to Camp Campbell, we go there maybe once a year, you go and see one of our kids. And I tell you, it's like a big city. You know what I mean? I wanted to tell you about my son, my oldest son. Can I tell you about him? I got his picture in there. He, at the age of 18, my first boy, at the age of 18, he graduated high school, and I said to him, Joe, you want to go to college? The money is there, which that job I told you paid off later on. And he said, Pop, come on with me, I'll show you where to college I'm going. And we walked across the road. Graduation day was an Army recruiting station there. We walked in there and he says, I want to enlist in the Army. I was so shocked. I said, Joe, you know what you're doing? It's wartime, you know. He said, Pop, I got to go. That's all, I got to go, you know. Out of all my brothers, all their children went to college. He's the only one that didn't go to college. He went to Jersey and become a drill instructor, paratroopers. He said, he came home on furlough. I said, Pop, I can't do that kind of work. I got to go there. I got to go do what I got to do. So I said, what are you going to do? He says, I don't know, but I got to go somewhere. They sent them as ski troops up in Alaska where you could look right into Russia. And he was there for a couple of months. He said, this ain't it. Volunteered for Vietnam. And he was a buck sergeant in the Big Red One at 28 Infantry Division. And I'll tell you, my wife on R&R, they had sent us a telegram if we wanted to see him. He'd be on R&R at this time. And I just couldn't go to see him. I didn't want to look in his eyes, you know. And well, he was like a skinny little rail. My wife went, you know, and my youngest son went, and I'll tell you, he sent me back a voice thing, you know, a voice of, like you could read in between the lines, you know, like, Pop, I got a maid, I'm not doing nothing, hanging around, getting a suntan, you know, all that bull. So when my wife come home, we got a telegram that they couldn't find him. Them guys, his company or something was missing in action, you know. And we didn't hear from him for at least 2-3 months. But then they found them. They were fighting their way out. They were cut off, and they were surrounded. You know, they couldn't get out. But somehow they fought their way out. You know, my wife got her hair turned gray in them 3 months, from blonde to gray. You know, and when he come home, see, here's another guy never talked about anything he done. When he come home, I said to me, Joe, what are you, a general? He had all his Bronze Star, Silver Star, Soldier's Medal, Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry with 3 stars. I said, what'd you do with that? And what'd you get this for? He laughed. He said, Pop, you were there. You know what it's all about. That's all he ever talked about, you know. But now he's starting to loosen up a little bit, you know. But for a while there, it was touch and go with him. You know, he was like he come back and said like nobody cared what we done. Mm-hmm. You know, like that. Things are okay now, I guess.
Yeah. It's changing. It's better, I think.
Yeah.
Of course, having a son who went through it, it wasn't a very good deal for our boys, for the boys that I went to high school with.
That boy that got killed in that tank, that they never found his body. When I was in the Rhodes General Hospital and in a wheelchair, and see this kid coming down the wheelchair, was his kid brother, was same battle we were in. He was with the 79th Infantry. He had a machine gun all the way down his back, his 2 legs, and they were doing a lot of operations on him, this and that, and I had told him what happened to his brother, you know, and he had said to me, don't ever tell my mom, you know. Mm-hmm. He died too. He died, got discharged, and just heart broke, I guess, you know, whatever. He just died. He was only a young kid too. People don't know what went on here. You know, one of those things, you know.
Is there any, are there any officers or your lieutenants that stand out in your mind that that you remember?
About what's that?
Are there any lieutenants or any of your officers that kind of stand out in your mind?
Officers?
Mm-hmm. Or your lieutenant or sergeant?
Yeah, Captain Ponzanelli.
Can you tell me about him?
He was captured, and a couple of our guys ran up there and shot the hell out of them guys that had him and brought him back. Mm-hmm. And I know he gave his pistol to one of the guys. Kid come from Chicago. Then they made him a second lieutenant, this kid, you know. after we were keeping losing a lot of men, and they instead of bringing in officers, they were promoting the guys on the field. We had a lot of battlefield commissions in the 12th Army that I heard of, and I know that this kid was one of them. You know what I mean? And well, I think all our officers were pretty damn good in the infantry. Infantry officers. I never had no qualms with them. We had a Lieutenant Hunt that was in charge of the mortar platoon. I swear this guy was another Audie Murphy, you know what I mean? He used to take us out in the middle of the night and said, let's beat the division out there and get up over this hill and dig us in before they even started out. You know what I mean? Get ready. This guy was something else. Well, all the guys were gung-ho in the outfit, You got a kid Bescript, there was another guy, another Audie Murphy, you know what I mean? He had a lot of, they were young, what the heck. Let's get it over with. Let's get back home, one of those things.
Now, how old were you when you...
I just made 22, but see, I worked in a defense plant. Oh. And they wouldn't take me in. They gave me a 1C or 1E or something. And all my brothers were in already, And damn, if I didn't want to stay home. At that time, I worked in this defense plant. They moved from Long Island to New Jersey. And I figured, well, this is my out. I could get in. But when I went to the draft board, they told me, no, you're essential. You got to go with them wherever they move. You got to go with that job because it's a defense job, And what I done is I went to a recruiting Navy Marine place, and I said to the guy, I can't get in damn service, I don't want to hang around all these old guys, and I look like a young kid walking around, I want to go get into the Army. So he said, well, how about the Marines? I said, I don't care anything, just I want to get in, He said, I'll tell you what you do. You don't go to work. Stay home for 10 days. What they'll do, they'll call you or they'll send you a letter or something to report to work in a certain amount of time. If you're not there, they're going to send to your draft board and they'll draft you, I said, man, this is it, And well, I told Vicki we weren't married. We were just, my girl and this and that. But she said, what are you, nuts and this and that? You got 2 brothers. I got 3 brothers in there. I said, I got to go. So what happened, I stayed home 10 days, stayed home longer, and the draft board called up and report to the draft board. I went up there, they said, you got to go back to your job. I said, well, I don't want to go back to my job. And I said, I want to go into the service. I don't like my job, and I'm not going back. So the lady said, well, it's too bad. Report the draft board Monday morning. You're going for your physical. You better let me know now if you can change your mind. I said, no, I'm going. So I went with them bunch of guys that I played ball with and all. It was their time to go, and we were all about the same age, more or less, And that's what happened. I just went along and wound up in the 12th Armored, And that's it.
Okay. Is there anything that I've left out that you want to tell me, or have we kind of covered those things?
Well, if I had to do it again, I'd do it again.
Do it again.
For the simple reason, I got grandkids now. My boy said the same thing. Pop, if I have to go, I'll go. Yeah, his kids are, one is 26 and the other one is 19. So, I guess once you love this country, you love it, right?
Yeah. Well, we appreciate all you did and the sacrifice that you made. And I appreciate you coming in and talking to us today and sharing your story with us.
I'm glad I could talk it out. We don't talk much about that.
Yeah.
Vicki don't like to hear about it because her brother was wounded so bad. And then be on a top fit giving her, worrying about that. And And things were hard, you know what I mean? And, I guess all of us had it hard at that time. You know, when you get out, you got nothing, you know. They called me back to that job where I worked at the defense plant, but I was like 90 miles away, you know, in Jersey. We lived in Long Island, so, you know. And then again, how could I go at that time, you know what I mean? Before I went into the service, I had already took my examination for New York City policeman. I figured, but I was a 1A at the time, you know what I mean? You know, so not 1A, but I was working in that place. And they said, well, if you could stay out and you're not going to the service, you know, but I wanted to go in the damn service. And when I came out, they said that all we could do is give you a desk job, you know. I said, no thanks, you know. Who wants to do that, you know what I'm saying? So, well, things worked out well for me, though, you know. Things worked out. We made the right choices. We saved the right way, you know. And thank the man up there for everything, right? You know.
That's right, yeah.
It's one thing I still do, say my prayers. I told you about my son with the prayer book, right?
Don't we have his prayer book?
You got it down there.
Yes, we have it.
It's all falling apart
Yes.
and stuff. When he came back, you walked right from the cab they came, and we gave him a surprise party. We told him it was for some, you know, someone else. And he walked in there, he had that prayer book in his uniform, you know. And I got the picture in there. And he walked right over to me, just pushed everybody aside. He said, Pop, he said, here's your prayer book. He said, it brought me back home like it did you, you know. So, boy, we had a good cry, you know.
Yeah.
And he's been watching over us ever since, you know. Things have been going pretty well. So. And I'm going to be 76, so I got nothing to complain about, right? You know what I mean? And the Army took care of me too, I guess, you know. I just hope no one ever has to go back through it. You know, that's tough. But today they tank shoot 10 miles and 20 miles away. When we were there, I was looking at the guy I had to shoot, right? You know, it's a different story, you know what I'm saying? You know. But,
Well, I sure appreciate it.
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I'm glad I could help in any way I could.